I studied the foundational text of what is today known as Daoism, Yoga, and Zen Buddhism. These books are the Dao de Jing by Lao Tzu, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shunryu Suzuki. All three of these books share a concept about reality, which states that there is something that is unified, formless, and eternal, giving rise to our experience of the world, which is separate, formed, and temporary. All three of these books also recognize that humans experience suffering and provide a path toward the easing of that suffering, which begins with recognition of the real state of affairs and not clinging to the temporary expressions of the eternal self. This identification with the eternal self, which enables one to stop clinging to temporary expressions, is cultivated through the practice of meditation. Each of these philosophies has variations on this theme. In my studies of these texts, I sought to purely understand the original teachings of these authors as they meant for their words to be received, and tried to avoid any additional summations by others that might put in my head a preconceived notion. I put in minimal effort to achieve a correct understanding of the historical context within which these authors were addressing their audience, and then read the text directly, spending at least one full week with each. In this presentation, I will give a summation of each philosophy to describe its perspectives on the nature of reality and its advice on how to alleviate suffering through these perspectives. I will quote directly from what I find to be the most clear and potent parts of the text, and afterward share my thoughts and conclusions. Book number 1, The Dao de Jing by Lao Tzu. Translations examined. The Divine Feminine by Rosemarie Anderson. Lao Tzu's Dao de Jing by Ken Liu. A Philosophical Translation by Robert Ames and David Hall. And Each Journey Begins with a Single Step by Den Ming Dao. This manuscript is composed of 81 poems that are over 5,000 years old, and which appeared during the Warring period in China, likely as a response to Confucianism and the politics of the era. The author, Lao Tzu, means simply old master, and is a legendary figure who may or may not be a literal person, or could be a mythical teacher of the Tao, and the poems are compiled of multiple people. Either way, these writings represent Taoism and are expressed in a way that translators of the Chinese manuscripts into English repeatedly asserted is a work of literary artistic genius that cannot be fully appreciated except in its mother tongue. Because of its poetic form, extrapolating the philosophical meaning was a hazy process of an inherently hazy worldview, which is non-duality in its purest form and escapes definitions like water slipping through a sieve. My understanding is that the Tao is the eternal, formless energy that gives rise to the changing forms of our world. The fourth poem of the Tao describes it like this. Poem 4. The Tao is empty, when used never exhausts. An abyss that seems the ancestor of all. She softens our edges, loosens our entanglements, tempers our light, merges with ordinariness. So still, she seems ever present. We do not know whose child this is. She seems to have existed before creation. And the sixth poem. The immortal void is called the dark womb. The dark womb's gate from her creation takes root in unbroken gossamer that imparts without effort. End quote. This Tao moves in a circle and does so by chasing its tail of polarities, describing the flow of nature's cycles, the seasons, death and rebirth, male and female, darkness and light, and every other duality we know, which cannot exist without the other, which cannot be experienced without the other because they are defined by the other. The Dao de Jing says, quote, under heaven, all can see beauty as beauty only because there is ugliness. All can know good as good exists only because there is evil. Therefore, having and not having arise together. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short contrast with each other. High and low rest upon each other. Voice and sound harmonize with each other, front and back follow one another. Therefore, the sage goes about doing nothing, teaching no talking, and 10,000 things rise and fall without cease. End quote. This spinning in a circle results in balance, and when we move with it, we find that balance. It is only through resisting the flow that imbalance arises. Therefore, the way to ease suffering is to not resist the natural flow of life. This philosophy is called Wu Wei. When we do not resist the Tao moves us, and we have to make no striving, no effort. This way emphasizes remaining natural and simple. Poem 8 describes what it might look like to flow with the Tao. Quote, "The highest good is like water, bringing goodness to all things without struggle, in seeking low places spurned by others. The Tao resembles water. For a house, the good is the land. For the mind, the good is depth. For relationships, the good is kindness. For speech, the good is trustworthiness. In government, the good is peace. In work, the good is skill. In actions, the good is timing. Above all, do not struggle." And poem 24. "Standing on tiptoe is unsteady. Striving is not to walk far. Showing off is not to shine. Seeking attention is not to be seen. Those who live the Tao do not indulge." Poem 29 says, "To force is to spoil. To grab is to destroy." 28. "Know the masculine, but hold to the feminine, and be to the world a channel. As a channel to the world, your original nature never departs. Not departing from your original nature, you become a newborn child again. Know the glorious, but hold to the lowly, and hold to the world a mirror. As a mirror to the world, your original nature is content. Content in your original nature, you become like uncarved wood. Know the light, but hold to the dark. Not straying from your original nature, you are without limits. Uncarved wood is carved up into tools, but master carvers do not cut." The next book examined is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali with a commentary by Swami Vivekananda. The Yoga Sutras is a document that is around 2,000 years old and is considered a foundational text on yoga philosophy. Like the Dao de Jing, its author, Patanjali, is a legend who may or may not be one specific man. Swami Vivekananda was a famous guru who brought yoga philosophy to the United States in the late 1800s and published a line-by-line commentary on the Yoga Sutras. Vivekananda addresses the audience at his time and relates the sutras to them regarding their rationalism as well as their Christianity. According to this worldview, everything is cyclical, and this, therefore, must also apply to the soul, known as the Purusa. The substance of the soul is one with God, but departs from him to go on a journey from that unity into separation. Then, over the course of many lifetimes, returns back to unity, completing a giant revolution. The separation from unity is seen to be the cause of suffering in life. And so for the yogi, the state of union with God is considered superior. And we should make every effort to hasten our return back to God. This effort to return back to God is the practice of yoga, according to Vivekananda. He says, "Every motion is a circle. If you could take up a stone, project it into space, and then live long enough, that stone would come back exactly to your hand. The plant takes material from the earth, dissolves, and gives it back. Every form in this world is taken out of corresponding atoms and goes back to these atoms. It cannot be the same law acts differently in different places. Law is uniform. Nothing is more certain than that. If this is the law of nature, so it is with thought. It will dissolve and come back to its origin, wherever we call, whether we will it or not. We shall have to return to the origin, which is called God or absolute. We all come from God, and we are all bound to go back to God. Call that God by any name you like. Call him God or absolute, or nature, or by any 100 names you like. The fact remains the same. From whom all this universe comes out, in whom all that is born lives, and to whom all returns. Now the question arises, is going back to God the higher state, or is it not? The philosophers of the yoga school answer emphatically that it is. They say that man's present state is a degeneration, that there is no one religion on the face of the earth which says that man is an improvement. The idea is that his beginning is perfect and pure, that he degenerates until he cannot degenerate further, and that there must come a time when he shoots upward again towards to complete the circle. The circle must be there. However low he goes, he must ultimately take the upward bend again and come back to the original source, which is God. Man comes from God in the beginning, in the middle becomes man, and in the end he goes back to God. This is the method of putting it in the dualistic form. The monistic form says that man is God and goes back to him again. If our present state is the higher one, then why is there so much horror and misery, and why is there an end to it? If this is the highest state, why does it end? That which corrupts and degenerates cannot be the highest state. Why should it be so diabolical, so unsatisfying? It is only excusable inasmuch as through it we are taking a higher groove. We have to pass through it in order to become regenerate again. Put a seed into the ground and it disintegrates, dissolves after a time, and out of that dissolution comes the splendid tree. Every seed must degenerate to become a stately tree. So it follows that the sooner we get out of this state we call man, the better for us. Basically, then he says that the soul produces the mind, which is called chitta, and the mind produces waves called vritti. Everything we experience in the world of separation is the mind and its waves. Therefore, this world is an illusion and not the true or the real self. Only this soul, God, is real because only that is constant, while everything else comes and goes. Because we are God experiencing an illusion of separation as a human, we can find our true self by looking inside ourselves, behind our thoughts, and behind our mind. We are forgetting who we really are, which causes suffering, and we can eliminate suffering by the practice of awakening and remembering through meditation. So Patanjali describes this on page 21. I'll read. He says, the real man is behind the mind, and the mind is the instrument of his hands, and it is his intelligence that is percolating through it. It is only when you stand behind it that it becomes intelligent. When man gives it up, it falls to pieces and is nothing. So you understand what is meant by chitta. It is the mind stuff, and vrittis are the waves and ripples rising in it, which, when external causes impinge on it, these vrittis are our whole universe. The bottom of the lake we cannot see because its surface is covered with ripples. It is only possible when the ripples have subsided and the water is calm for us to catch a glimpse of the bottom. If the water is muddy, the bottom will not be seen. If the water is agitated all the time, the bottom will not be seen. If the water is clear and there are no waves, we shall see the bottom. That bottom of the lake is our own true self. The lake is the chitta, and the waves are the vritti. Again, this mind is in three states. One is darkness, which is called tamas. Just as in brutes and idiots, it only acts to injure others. No other idea comes into that state of mind. Then there's the active state of mind, rajas, whose chief motives are power and enjoyment. I will be powerful and rule others. Then, at last, when the waves cease and the waters of the lake become clear, there is the state called sattva, serenity, calmness. It is not inactive, but rather intensely active. It is the greatest manifestation of power to be calm. It is easy to be active. Let the reins go, and the horses will drag you down. Anyone can do that. But he who can stop the plunging horses is the strong man. Which requires the greater strength, letting go or restraining? The calm man is not the man who is dull. You must not mistake sattva for dullness or laziness. The calm man is the one who has restraint of these waves. Activity is the manifestation of the lower strength, calmness of the superior strength. End quote. Patanjali then instructs the yogi on how to go about concentrating the mind and ultimately silencing it. When this is achieved, it is known as samadhi, and eventually the yogi can achieve supernatural powers as his ego or his false self begin to fall away. He can also remember past lives and over a long period of time ultimately work to burn the seed and unravel karma, becoming a seedless soul called Isvara. which is the ultimate escape from the wheel of rebirth. Page 68 says, the most ignorant man thinks his body is the soul. The more learned man thinks that his mind is the soul, but both of these are mistaken. What makes the soul get mingled up with all this, these different waves in the citta, rise and cover the soul, and we only are a little reflection of the soul through these waves. So, if the wave is one of anger, we see the soul as angry. I am angry, we say. If the wave is a wave of love, we see ourselves reflected in that wave and say we are loving. These various ideas come from these impressions, these samskaras covering the soul. Meditation is the act of suppressing the waves and letting the mud settle to see the bottom of the lake, to see the soul just as it is, not its seed. It cannot die, the soul. It is immortal, indestructible, the ever-living essence of intelligence. End quote. So, for the yogi, how can one alleviate suffering in this life? By recognizing his true self as this eternal being and not attaching himself to the changing external world. Through the practice of meditation, we can undo our patterns of attachment, called samskaras, and find inner peace and resilience towards the waves of life. Page 76, Patanjali says, egoism is the identification of the seer with the instrument of seeing. Through the book, asceticism is promoted, turning away from the physical and moving towards the spirit. However, he ends the book with this beautiful quote which honors nature. He says, nature's task is done, this unselfish task, which our sweet nurse, nature, has imposed upon herself. As it were, she gently took the self-forgetting soul by the hand and showed him all the experiences in the universe, all manifestations, bringing him higher and higher through various bodies till his glory came back and he remembered his own nature. Then the kind mother went back the way she came, for others who have lost their way in the trackless desert of life. And this she is working, without beginning and without end. And thus, through pleasure and pain, through good and evil, the infinite river of souls is flowing into the ocean of perfection and self-realization. Glory unto those who have realized their own nature. May their blessing be on us all. End quote. Zen Buddhism. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shunryu Suzuki. What is Zen? The word Zen comes from the Chinese word Chan, which comes from the Sanskrit word dhyana, meaning meditation, contemplation, or concentration. As you can see from the etymology, Zen comes from Chinese Buddhism, which before that came from India. It is therefore the youngest of the philosophies studied here and offers a bit of a commentary or modification on the previous ones. That being said, it is more of a practice and less of a fully structured worldview, and can therefore be adopted by a wide variety of people. The author of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, Shunryu Suzuki, is famous for bringing Zen to the United States in the early 1900s. His book is less than 200 pages and repeatedly emphasizes practice over preaching, as the true teacher is experience of Zazen, the Zen meditation practice. Zen emphasizes the most direct, most present experience, both of the internal world and the external. In fact, for the Zen Buddhist, there is no distinction, but in the perspective of big mind, everything is the internal world. Everything is an experience of the mind. There is no past or present, but past or present are just ideas in the mind. Therefore, like the yogi, Zen accepts that all of what we experience as the world is the mind and its waves. However, because we are in the eternal present, all liberation takes place in the now, not in the striving to attain some state of enlightenment or some ultimate escape from reincarnation in the future. Notice the same analogy is used by Suzuki as Vivekananda of the water and waves, but what he says of it is very different. Page 34. Because we enjoy all aspects of life as an unfolding of big mind, we do not care for any excessive joy. So we have imperturbable composure. When you are practicing Zazen, do not try to stop your thinking. Let it stop itself. If something comes into your mind, let it come in and let it go out. It will not stay long. When you try to stop your thinking, it means you are bothered by it. Do not be bothered by anything. It appears as if something comes from outside your mind, but actually it is only the waves of your mind. And if you are not bothered by the waves, Gradually, they will become calmer and calmer. In 5 or at most 10 minutes, your mind will be completely serene. At that time, your breathing will become quite slow, while your pulse will become a little faster. Nothing comes from outside your mind. Usually, we think of our mind as receiving impressions and experiences from the outside, but that is not a true understanding of our mind. The true understanding is that the mind includes everything. When you think something comes from outside, it only means that something appeared in your mind. Nothing outside yourself can cause any trouble. You yourself make the waves in your mind. If you leave your mind as it is, it will become calm. This mind is called big mind. If your mind is related to something outside itself, that mind is a small mind, a limited mind. If your mind is not related to anything else, then there is no dualistic understanding in the activity of your mind. You understand activity as just waves of your mind. Big mind experiences everything within itself. Do you understand the difference between the two minds, the mind which includes everything and the mind which is related to something? Actually, they are the same thing, but the understanding is different, and your attitude towards your life will be different according to which understanding you have. That everything is included within your mind is essence of mind. To experience this is to have religious feeling. Even though waves arise, the essence of your mind is pure. It is just like clear water with a few waves. Actually, water always has waves. Waves are the practice of the water. To speak of waves apart from water or water apart from waves is a delusion. Water and waves are one. Big mind and small mind are one. When you understand your mind in this way, you have some security in your feeling. As your mind does not expect anything from outside, it is always filled. A mind with waves in it is not a disturbed mind, but actually an amplified one. Whatever you experience is an expression of big mind. The activity of big mind is to amplify itself through various experiences. In one sense, our experiences coming one by one are always fresh and new, but in another sense, they are nothing but a continuous or repeated unfolding of the one big mind. For instance, if you have something good for breakfast, you will say that is good. Good is applied as something experienced sometime long ago, even though you may not remember when. With the big mind, we accept each of our experience as if recognizing the face we see in the mirror as our own. For us, there is no fear of losing this mind. There is nowhere to come or go. There is no fear of death, no suffering from old age or sickness. Because we enjoy all aspects of life as an unfolding of big mind, we do not care for any excessive joy. So we have imperturbable composure, and it is with this imperturbable composure of big mind that we practice Zazen. End quote. How can a Zen Buddhist relieve suffering? First is by right understanding that the transient forms which make up our experience are inherently empty in and of themselves, and only when taken as expressions of and part of the whole do they have any meaning. This notion is called emptiness. He says on page 119. Let's see. Each existence depends on something else. Strictly speaking, there are no separate individual existences. There are just many names for one existence. Sometimes people stress on oneness, but this is not our understanding. We do not emphasize any point in particular, even oneness. Oneness is valuable, but variety is also wonderful. Ignoring variety, people emphasize the one absolute existence, but this is a one-sided understanding. In this understanding, there is a gap between variety and oneness, but oneness and variety are the same thing, so oneness should be appreciated in each existence. This is why we emphasize everyday life rather than some particular state of mind. We should find the reality in each moment and in each phenomenon. This is a very important point. And therefore, he says to accept experience with an open door policy. Your front door is open and in comes life. Do not offer your life tea, but let it exit out the back door. This means do not grasp onto it or cling to it, but let it move like your own breath. Let it be a swinging door. This is the Zen idea of non-attachment. Right Zen understanding of life is beautifully expressed by Suzuki as a waterfall on page 93. Suzuki says, I went to Yosemite National Park and I saw some huge waterfalls. The highest one there is 1,340 feet high. and from it the water comes down like a curtain thrown from the top of a mountain. It does not seem to come down swiftly, as you might expect. It seems to come down very slowly because of the distance. And the water does not come down as one stream, but it separates into many tiny streams. From a distance, it looks like a curtain. And I thought it must be very difficult experience for each drop of water to come down from the top of such a high mountain. It takes time, a long time, for the water finally to reach the bottom of the waterfall. And it seems to me that our human life may be like this. We have many different experiences in our life, but at the same time, I thought the water was not originally separated, but was one whole river. Only when it is separated does it have some difficulty in falling. It is as if the water does not have any feeling when it is one whole river. Only when separated into many drops can it begin to have or express some feeling. When we see one whole river, we do not feel the living activity of the water. But when we dip a part of the water into a dipper, we experience some feeling of the water, and we also feel the value of the person who uses the water. Feeling ourselves and the water in this way, we cannot use it in just a material way. It is a living thing. Before we were born, we had no feeling. We were one with the universe. This is called mind only, or essence of mind, or big mind. After we are separated by birth from this oneness, as the water falling from the waterfall is separated by the wind and the rocks, then we have feeling. You have difficulty because you have feeling. You attach to a feeling you have without knowing just how this kind of feeling is created. When you do not realize that you are one with the river or one with the universe, you have fear. Whether it is separated into drops or not, water is water. Our life and death are the same thing. When we realize this fact, we have no fear of death anymore, and we have no actual difficulty in our life. End quote. Also, to relieve suffering, we must have the right attitude. The right attitude in life is to be approached with beginner's mind. What is meant by a beginner's mind? The beginner has direct experience. He does not think, I already know about this, so I don't have to give it my attention. The continual and authentic direct engagement with life is an expression of your true self. Suzuki, page 89, says, to express yourself freely as you are is the most important thing to make yourself happy and to make others happy. Therefore, to the Zen Buddhist, non-attachment enables you to fully engage with life authentically, not to drift away from it. Conclusion. What do I think of all of this? I wish I could just read you so much of all of these books because really there's just so much of it that was so good. There are some fundamental agreements in these teachings. For example, all of them recognize that there's this eternal and formless self, which gives rise to the transient forms, and also concludes that aligning with the eternal self, rather than clinging to the temporary forms, results in the alleviation of suffering. All of them recognize the eternal self as one in nature with God, and therefore do not have an externalized experience of God, but an internalized one. And however, there are some distinctions. For one, the yogi strives to attain a state. The Taoist and the Zen Buddhist teach against striving. For example, in Indian philosophy, the cow represents desire, and Hindu gods are depicted as riding the cow, representing control over the desires of the body. However, the Zen Buddhist advocates control by non-forcing, but by allowing the cow to come and go. The Taoist believes that by allowing, the wisdom of the Tao will bring everything into balance. The yogi wants to have one type of experience, samadhi, and to make it permanent, while the Zen Buddhist wants to see life as it really is and to let everything come and go. It's challenging to boil down these teachings to something so simple, and much wisdom and insights are lost by me trying to do so. There's so many things that I'm leaving out. All three of these books were my teachers, and all of them spoke to me. And the deeper I went into understanding each idea, the less different the superficial differences became. They more so illustrated the failing of words to transmute complex understandings, as well as the ability of different words to produce a different insight into the very same experience. At first, I resonated with the yogi more than the Taoist or the Zen Buddhist, because it was easier for my mind to grasp, following grooves in my thinking that already existed. But as I read and reread Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, it changed from something confusing into something really profound. It took my spiritual practice away from the abstract and immediately into the moment. Everything I once thought of as out there and then is now here and now. This is a gift I'm just beginning to open. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I highly, highly recommend that you pick up one of these books and start reading it. And for now, that is it. Thank you for listening.